Hello, everyone, and welcome to session number 6 of Healthy Church Systems. Hopefully, by now, you have taken the material one step at a time and you are seeing some noticeable results. We've always been telling you that 3 things that grow your church: great preaching, great children's ministry, and today we're going to focus on great
worship. Man, I cannot tell you how important worship is to the health of your church. And there's a number of reasons for that, and we're going to try to break it down and give you just a couple of things to focus on. But I think where we would start is just making sure we're on the same page of the purpose of worship. What is the purpose of worship, man? What is the goal? Why do we have worship? Well, to put it simply, it's to lead us in the presence of God. And not just lead us in the presence of God, but do so that our hearts are prepared to receive God's word.
That's right. So the first thing that we feel like you need to do is define your target audience. Who are you trying to reach? What does your community look like? And you may say, well, I really don't know what my community looks like. There are so many diversities that live around you, or you may be in the country. One thing that you can do is, even on the website you're on right now, that you can do a demographic study of the area around you. I would highly encourage each of you to do that, because it will tell you exactly who lives within a 20-minute drive of your church. Now, you want to be multi-generational as well, so you have to focus your song selection on the type of people that are around you, or nobody's going to come hear it.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges, specifically as a pastor, is either A, what do I like, or B, what are the people that give the most like, or maybe even C, what are the people that fuss the most like, and the challenge is we can be a ping pong ball going all over the world. And I think there's a great approach in being multi-generational, so no one's saying, hey, you need to sing all this new relevant music. If you do that, great. If you're opposed to that, maybe not great, because you could sing a hymn and you could sing a brand new song. You could sing something that you love and sing something that, if you have a teenager, they love, and something that your grandmother loves, and all the way, being able to combine those things. But most importantly, as Tony's saying, we're trying to reach people. If we're mature believers, man, I believe I can worship to anything that lyrically lifts up the name of Jesus and is theologically accurate. The tune that goes along with it, man, if that's something that reaches the next generation or the people that don't know Christ yet, let's go with that.
Right, and the sad fact is, a lot of churches that have less than 150 people in them, statistically, they're still just singing hymns. And there's nothing wrong with hymns. I love hymns. When we sing hymns at our church, every person joins in. But at the same time, if we don't have something that appeals to that next generation, we send a signal to them saying, you don't matter. And for that first-time person that's walking in, they may have left a church years ago, and they walk into this church and go, nothing has changed.
Right.
It didn't help me then. It's not going to help me now. So I would encourage you that if you're that church that you're only singing hymns, it's not necessarily just about the people in your congregation. It's about the people outside the 4 walls. And in order to get them in, you're going to have to be more relevant.
And if you were to step back at some of the earlier videos where we talked about vision, this is one of the areas that you have to speak visionarily, not only consistently, but loudly. Do it all the time, but in your sermons, in your meetings, in your one-on-ones, speak to what you're trying to accomplish. And that's why it's so important to define that target audience. Secondly is build a team. More than likely where you are, maybe a spouse or a sibling or someone related to you or someone that was already there when you arrived at your church is musically inclined. But what are you doing to build a team beyond that? Here's what I can guarantee is there are musicians in your community. You just haven't tapped into them yet. I would submit that musicians know musicians.
Right.
You know what I mean? People that play, specifically people that play at a high level, know other people that play at a high level. So it's so critical that we build teams.
Right. And in order to do that, many times you have to go and recruit those teams.
Right.
Although Northside is a great church and substantially large right now. We started with about 25 people, and we had hardly anyone that could play or sing. We had some people, but I went on a mission that I was going to go after the people that I desired. So I started recruiting them. I recruited musicians. I recruited singers. They may say no, but what do you have to lose in trying to reach them? So do that. Just be intentional about it. I know that you have a great story about
Yeah,
a
yeah.
church in Florida.
I was connected with a pastor in a church in Florida, and they had a couple of good musicians, but they really needed a drummer to be able to do the music they wanted to do, the worship they wanted to do at a high level. And they had a drum set actually at the church, but it was just in a closet. And so they were kind of, hey, we need a drummer, we need a drummer. And the pastor said, hey, why don't we put the drum set out where it should go, on the platform where it would go, and let's put it out there and pray for God to send a drummer. Well, it was only a matter of weeks when someone approached the pastor after service and said, hey, great service, this is awesome, but I noticed you got a set of drums up there. What's going on with that? And he was able to articulate the vision. Well, we've been praying for God to send us a drummer. We have a drum set. We don't have a drummer. Just so happens that guy was a very accomplished drummer, and within no time joined the church, joined the team, began to play for them. So it may be a situation to where you have some instruments that you don't have players for. Maybe you put them out there. Make it a matter of prayer. Tell the church, hey, we're believing for God to send us musicians or send us people for these instruments. And I just thought that was a great way to help kind of build that team.
Right, and I think that a really important point to make right here is don't go after the people in the church down the street.
Yeah.
Go after
right.
the people or recruit the people that they're not involved anywhere. Okay. Point number 3 is prioritize your preparation. Preparation is paramount in everything we do. Worship is typically the first thing that happens in your service, and so that first impression needs to be a really good one. So one thing that you have to do is you have to make sure that you have the right sound system. If you have lights, that they're the right kind of lights, they're doing the right thing. Those first few minutes need to be fantastic. I recently visited a church that they have about 50 people in their church, and I noticed the one thing when I walked in, that every person in the church was sitting to the far left. Like, it's very strange. There was a wall, and everybody was sitting in front of that wall, and then there was the big open space, and I was sitting in the big open space. Well, what I didn't notice was all the speakers were right behind me. It was so loud that my ears were ringing when I left that place. And I said, I understand why they're all sitting over there, because they're going to be deaf when they leave if they do this every Sunday. So
Right.
that sound system is important. And you are on a budget. We're all on a budget. We understand that. But let's make sure that we're doing the best we can with what we have.
Yeah, and speaking of preparation, I would submit to you that the better you prepare, the better the message is going to be on Sunday. In other words, I doubt, or I hope you're not waiting until Sunday morning to open up the Bible and begin to pray and say, okay, God, give me a message. I'm hoping that you're working not even just that week, but weeks out in preparation for that message. And when we talk about something like worship, it is that skill set that also requires extreme preparation. I don't know any musician, I've never met a musician that's accomplished that just does it one time a week. It's something that takes time, it takes effort. And then when you put multiple musicians together to learn each other, to understand the dynamics of how they work together as a team. So if they're not rehearsing together, if they're not practicing together, and even practicing individually before they come together, that preparation point is so key. And then I think, as we mentioned, prayer being the center of everything,
Right.
Having them pray together individually and as a team, so they're not just using their instruments to prepare, they're preparing their hearts to lead us in worship. Because what I would submit to you is helping everyone on that platform understand there's not one worship leader, whoever the person that's singing the most solos. Everyone on that platform is leading worship.
Right. And the great thing about today is technology. You may be in a situation where you may have one or two great musicians, one great musician, and you want more, but you need to fill a gap in between. Well, thanks to technology, you can do that through tracks, through different things. And you may say, well, I don't understand how to do that. I promise you, there's a teenager in your church that would love to learn how to do that or knows how to do that, and that will transform your Sunday morning worship experience just by using some modern technology. And you may say, well, I've got a group of people that are not going to like that. I promise you, for every one person that doesn't like it, there's 10 more that are going to celebrate it.
And most of those things work on iPads, which if you have young children, they probably have already. So you already have the tools that you need, which leads us into that fourth thing, and that is just continually finding ways to improve. So it's easy to get discouraged when you talk about something like worship if you're in a situation that doesn't have great worship. We can, go on YouTube or watch something on TV, someone that has a larger church, or maybe even if you're heading to a state event or something like that and go, man, I wished I had this. That's great to put on the list, but really what we're looking at is, hey, how do we get one step better? How do we improve from where we are and just take a step to get better?
Right, and the people that we're trying to reach aren't always the people sitting on the front row. That person on the front row of your church, they're going to worship no matter what. I believe the people we need to be noticing are the people that sit in the back,
Right.
stand in the back. What is the goal of worship? To lead people into God's presence. That's what we desire to do at Northside every Sunday. I want to lead people into God's presence because I know that He can do in 1 second more than I can do in a lifetime. In order to engage them, we may have to change the way we do certain things in worship.
Yeah, and I think two things are critical there. One, from an evaluative standpoint, I know some friends that they have the beyond the third row rule, which means anybody sitting those first three rows, you could do just about anything. They're probably going to worship. It's really how are we engaging beyond that third row, and that really deals with your people on the platform and helping them, whether it's making eye contact, whether it is just in preparation for themselves, but making sure we're connecting beyond that. It may be one of the things that I think we can do sometimes is just, okay, we're going to sing 3 songs or we're going to sing 4 songs. Sometimes stopping in between and articulating, let me tell you the power in the lyrics of this next song. Let me tell you why this song is so important to our faith. Let me tell you why this song means so much for us to sing today. You may have people in the congregation who theologically do not understand what's going on. And the pastors that are watching, this may be where you can help your worship leaders. And when they're talking about song selection, man, you should be in there knowing these songs, knowing these lyrics, and making sure theologically your team knows what, because it may excite them to realize, wait a minute, this is what I'm singing.
Right.
But then the other thing I would say with that, Pastor Tony, is we have to be on the front row worshiping
Right.
and leading worship. It's not just people on the platform. We need to be up front, hands raised, clapping, singing, being engaged in worship.
We set the example. If we don't worship, other people will not worship. What I do, the congregation will follow. So it's so important. Going back to what you said about talking sometimes in between the song, I call it a pastoral moment.
Yep.
I encourage it every week for at least one of our worship leaders to take time and stop. I was recently listening to a very beautiful song that had just been recorded, and although I love the song, at the end of the song, the person that sang the song told the story that she actually wrote that song after she had a miscarriage.
Oh, wow.
And it made so much more impact on me after hearing that story. So it's so important that we can connect not just that front row, but that back row into worship and what's happening.
That's good. That's good.
So we hope that you've enjoyed this session. We hope that you will prioritize your worship, make it excellent, do everything that you need to do in order to make it the best that it can be.
And don't forget, if you need any additional help, there's some information right now at the bottom of your screen.